Hello, Chords and Notes Nation. I am Brian, son of Thomas,
I am Matthew, son of Lawrence.
and we are here for the first ever movie reaction. Seven Kings Must Die. If you are new here, please subscribe and like. Both of those options will cost you nothing but about a tenth of a second, but that will help grow the channel. Those of you who want to go above and beyond, there is super thanks available. There are donations available through PayPal. You can become an official member of Chords and Notes Nation via Patreon. All of that information is in the description box below. And for those of you who decide to go above and beyond, and you do a super thanks, I will absolutely record a thank you video just for you. And if you give us $100, he's going to record a video for you. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Okay, anyways, son of Lawrence, we have something to talk about. We have a movie that you and I both have been waiting for for a long time. How long has it been? 2 years?
I think it was only about a year.
A year?
Right? I think they got it up to about a year, right? They're always pretty quick to get the seasons. Yeah, I think it's been a year.
There was a 2-year lull between season 4 and 5, I think, because of COVID filming restrictions.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it's been about a year. But anyways, the wait is over. We just got done watching it. Give me your thoughts.
The finale.
I know.
Boogshard's Destiny.
Yes.
We're
not going to tell you what it is. You're going to have to watch it yourself.
So no spoilers.
No spoilers.
Okay, I'll do my best to be careful.
Okay.
Again, I thought it was good. I mean, it was very much had the same kind of themes and the same kind of atmosphere, I guess would be the word I'm looking for, as the TV series, right? So, whereas maybe, some shows in the past have maybe kind of lost their way at the end, I felt like The Last Kingdom seemed to have a plan, and they stayed with the plan. I mean, if you're not familiar with the show, you should be. It's a really good show, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
Dare I say the best show on Netflix? Maybe Stranger Things is better. I know.
You guys are gonna laugh. You're gonna get on me for this. I've never watched Stranger Things.
Oh yeah, you gotta get on that. Your kids watch it?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, they probably would like it too. But it's one of the best shows on Netflix, right? It's a very fast-paced show, very, very, very fast-paced, and the movie was that too. Like the plot can go years in advance within, 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So it really moves at a fast pace, and you kind of have to train yourself to kind of accept that. And once you do, you're in for a good roller coaster. And the movie kind of kept to that. I think. I mean, it was much more condensed because it's a movie, right? It's not a 8-episode TV arc, but it was definitely very fast paced.
Yeah. Well, and to add to that, so I'm going to focus more on the movie. I feel like with the movie, even though it was fast-paced, you didn't get lost in the timeline like you do in the series, right? Because I think it was every season encompassed 2 books of the Saxon Chronicles, or whatever name I forgot. I think it's the Saxon Chronicles that were given to it. And with respect, 8 episodes a season, I think it was. They didn't really give themselves a lot of time to expand on things. No. But so here, it's the bookend to what I would say is arguably one of the best Netflix series I've seen so far.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yes, I haven't seen Stranger Things. Let's get it over with, okay? But the characters in the movie were riveting. You and I discussed there were certain characters that we did not see coming. Mm-hmm. One in particular. And we actually even paused and spoke about him and his role, and even did a little research onto were things a certain way as the books or the stories trying to tell us, and it looked like we got a little bit of confirmation that yes, it was. So it was very fitting that that's what I've really loved about Bernard Cornwell's ability as an historical author, fictional author, is that he can take those elements and certain characters and tell us the story of something that happened, and embellish a little bit with the fiction to give us that what we're looking for entertainment.
Yeah, in our research, he did say he might have taken some liberties.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the show is adapting his novels, right? And I think the show, at least from what I saw when we paused it, seemed to be following the spirit of what I think he was going for, right?
Right.
And they did that throughout, I think, the whole series. So I think in that regard, the movie was, in that way, it felt true to what they were doing.
Yeah. Did it end the way you thought it would end?
That's a good question. I mean, like the last scene, I don't think so, right? Because that was a little different. Last scene made me think of the ending of Merlin. I don't think that's spoilery, so I don't think it is. I won't elaborate from there.
Right.
But keep in mind, we are talking about a series that is based on some history, on some real characters, real events, and whatnot. So, I think it ended pretty close to what I expected for Uhtred. That's pretty close to what I thought would happen. And I'm kind of okay with that, right?
Yeah.
It met expectations.
Right.
Obviously, the last part of the story. So there's a final battle, and the final battle I think was, I thought it was pretty fun.
It was. I don't think it was as dynamic as some of the battles that they had in the seasons.
It wasn't their best battle.
Right.
Would that be?
Yeah. Right. And I mean, it certainly had, just like all battle scenes, it's kind of predictable where there were certain people that would get hurt or injured or die, and you've got the setting traps for people and this and that. I mean, it's all rather predictable at this point. But the acting was very good. The ending of the story, I think I'm in agreement with you in. I think we knew where it was probably going to go because it probably bookended the story perfectly from the beginning.
Yeah.
For
sure.
It was the logical
for Uhtred's story. Yeah,
for
that was
his
a perfect
storyline.
bookend.
Yeah,
I would say
absolutely. The way it happened, neither here nor there for me.
Okay.
I just accept it as that's okay. This is what they decided is going to happen, and I'm okay with that. And
yeah, it wasn't by any means bad, right?
Right.
It's not like I stopped watching. I mean, what a disappointment! At the same time, I don't think I jumped out of my chair going, "Oh my god, greatest ending ever!" I think it kept with the tone of the show, and that's kind of what I wanted. I was really worried that the movie would stray from that tone.
Yeah.
And kind of go off and kind of do its own thing. And I feel like that the movie didn't do that. I think it stayed. I mean, it was, in a sense, it was a 2-hour episode of The Last Kingdom.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing, and I'm going to have to navigate these words carefully so I don't give the spoiler. Okay. In my interpretation of everything that happened and how it closed, the one thing that I thought was an interesting twist, like a pretzel twist, gotta have some humor in this, was...
It's so corny.
I know.
Yeah.
Cornwell corny.
Yeah.
So this whole statement, destiny is all, right?
Yeah.
I think for the longest time we understood that Uhtred knew what his destiny was. But including Uhtred and ourselves, we didn't realize what his destiny really was.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I think I got you. Yeah.
So
you got to be very careful here. Not to give spoilers.
the one thing that he wanted the most, he got, but that didn't end the show, the series, right?
No.
So that even kind of lends itself to this idea that Well, typically you would end a story there. Okay, you've completed your goal, your destiny. Story over. We can close this story and be done.
Yeah.
But there were still too many unanswered questions, and there was something else that needed to be accomplished too. And did we see who was going to do that, who wasn't going to do that? Did we know who was going to rise, who was going to fall?
Sure.
All of those questions were still there. And I think, did they answer those questions? I think so.
Yeah.
There's still story arcs that are hanging out there. What happens to this person and that person and this person and that person?
Because it's history, right?
Right.
And a lot of those answers and if you're talking about the same question that I think you are, those who know the history likely already kind of knew where the story was going.
Yeah.
So we both kind of had a hunt. We knew where the story was going to go, with that other question that maybe wasn't answered at the end of season 5. I mean, season 5 being the last of the TV series, so it was very clearly was not answered.
Right.
Hence why I think when season 5 got done, everybody's like, all right, there's more to this, right? And
Yeah.
then they announced the movie like a day later. It was really quick after.
I know.
So they seem to have a plan in place.
Yeah.
As to how they executed that answer, I think they had to take that story and they had to kind of connect it with Uhtred's story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they did that very good.
Yeah.
Now, again, if you're familiar with the TV series,
Yes.
it's pretty much a roller coaster to get there. I mean, and it's full speed ahead. I mean, roller coasters are up and down. Let me take that back. It's a train that just goes right through, and you either keep up or you don't. Right? That's how The Last Kingdom is kind of structured, I feel like. And the movie was just like that. And
Yeah.
we got to where it wanted to go.
And okay, so you were the one to originally introduce me into the world of Game of Thrones. Well, not really. I correct myself. You were the one who guided me through it, but it was my wife at the time who suggested we should start watching the series.
Yeah.
And then I'm guilty of, while she was sleeping, I was watching it and she didn't get to, and that really ticked her off. My bad. But once I told you about that, I started watching it. Then you're like, okay, dude, here's the dealio. And do you remember you stepped in and you're like, okay, I'm a huge fan of this. Okay, so why am I bringing up Game of Thrones? Okay, because I still have it in my mind, having seen that entire series, and no, I have not watched the spinoff yet. And seeing this entire series, only having read this audiobook, this is the first book of the Chronicles, and I think I listened to all of the audiobooks for Game of Thrones.
Roy Dutree. He's the narrator of Game of Thrones.
It was years ago. It's in my playlist.
Hopefully that's what you did, because he gives the best.
So, in a sense, having read a lot of the source material, what I'm getting at is I always felt like Last Kingdom could easily rival or surpass the grandiose impactfulness of Game of Thrones. But the one thing that I always told you, I think if you remember, is that hamstrung it is the fact that they busted through so quickly through the storyline, when this should have been something that should have been a little bit longer and flesh out the details of things more. That's what I think.
Well, I mean, they're easy to compare. It's the same genre, right? I mean, Game of Thrones, I think, introduces more high fantasy, right? This is a world based on the world we live in, The Last Kingdom.
Right.
Whereas Game of Thrones is, magic is gone from the world and it's coming back when the show kind of starts. The production, I mean, you can't compare the production value of the two shows. Game of Thrones just had so much money thrown at it.
Yeah.
That it almost became like an event.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to think of. And you had like bars hosting Game of Thrones parties and things like that. Plenty of Game of Thrones reaction videos. Dare I say, reaction videos. I think I don't want to say they got their start with Game of Thrones, but I think Game of Thrones very much helped reaction videos. I mean, RW. Leave it at that.
Yeah.
For those who haven't seen Game of Thrones. The thing where I think maybe where, let's say, Last Kingdom succeeded where I think Game of Thrones failed in the end was Game of Thrones seasons 1 through 6 had a very structure to it. I felt like 10 episode seasons, each season in the beginning, the middle, and then there was a setup at the end for the next season. Then the showrunners, I don't want to turn this into a Game of Thrones thing, but the showrunner.
We have to though.
Well, the showrunners got tired. I think it's been either alluded to that they were just tired and burned out, and they wanted to get it over with. So they got it over with.
Yeah.
And the last 2 seasons were very shortened, and a lot of character development, I think, faltered because of that. They deviated from their structure and they rushed it. Last Kingdom has always been kind of rushed.
Yeah.
As a result, we are trained to understand that in a single episode, it could jump 2 years in advance. I think there's at least one episode where I felt like it jumped like 8 years in advance in Last Kingdom at one point.
Right.
You know, Game of Thrones, we weren't trained, our minds weren't trained to watch Game of Thrones that way. So that's why I think the last 2 seasons, especially with, Game of Thrones taking liberty with how people traveled from one point to another, you were like, "What? This isn't Game of Thrones." Last Kingdom, they do that. They do that all the time, but they did it since the beginning, and so it felt more natural. It felt more pure because of that. And the movie does that too. The movie undoubtedly does that. Uhtred's in one place at one point, boom, he shows up in another place at another point. And
the ageless Uhtred.
The ageless Uhtred, yes. He definitely has got some good supplements or something.
There was some nice allusions to the fact that they aged, because a lot of those characters did not look like they aged. Some of them, yes.
I think they tried. I think they tried to say, "Hey, they're older," and Uhtred certainly was not the warrior that you would expect him to be from the previous season.
Because the writers didn't let him.
He definitely seemed like he slowed down. But for a guy who, I mean, if we're doing the math, he's probably in his late 60s, mid 60s.
I don't know, because what ages did Alfred die at? What age did Edward die? We weren't given that information with Edward. And Athelstan being a key role was probably in his early 20s. Do you remember, was Alfred alive when Athelstan was born? Yeah, so you're probably only looking at it's probably less than that. You may be looking at someone who's hypothetically was in his late 40s, early 50s. Because kings die a lot quicker.
Well, and they got busier at younger ages, I think, with procreating.
That's true enough. So I'm going to bring in one more before I'm pretty much done with what I've got to say. But I think it's very important when it comes to story writing, storytelling, and acting, that you give life to characters and make them memorable, characters that stand out. Now, we've talked about Game of Thrones, and those of you who know Game of Thrones, you can identify. If you're like this guy and like has every line memorized,
I have a bunch of useless knowledge,
then you know every single character, or even like Lord of the Rings, right? That's exciting. They're going to be making a new movie for that. But anyways, that'll be something else.
As long as it's not a remake.
I know.
No remakes.
I know. They better bring Tom Bombadil into this one, because I was so upset they did not do that the first time.
He is an anomaly in the history of Middle Earth when you think about it.
Yeah, he is. But anyways, Vikings. Now, you don't know that series. And the spin-off Vikings Valhalla, which is very good as well, I might add. So why am I bringing up Game of Thrones, Last Kingdom, and Vikings Valhalla in the same conversation while laying the context of characters? How many times have you and I over the years talked about, what if there was like a duel between Jon Snow and Uhtred? Or what if Uhtred was in the world of...
Who would win?
Yeah, in the world of Game of Thrones. Or what if Jon Snow was in the world of Uhtred? And I even have to bring in Vikings with Ragnar and Bjorn, his son. Was it Bjorn? I think it was Bjorn. Some very powerful characters that are focused on. And in closing... I mean, he's the central character, Uhtred. And Alexander Draymond did a phenomenal job making him an iconic character that allows us to fantasize about what if that character
Yeah.
was, okay, what if Uhtred was in Middle Earth?
I don't know about that one.
But it's I think it's a transcendent character in that sense. That it's such an iconic character that was written into the stories and brought to life by Alexander Draymond that you're never going to forget it.
Yeah, and you look at Vigo, who played Aragorn. He very much cared about the character, was invested in the character.
Yes.
Kit Harington was very much invested in Jon Snow to the point, I think, when hey man, I'm depressed because the show's over.
Yeah.
Alexander Draymond, I think, had that same passion for the character Uhtred that a lot of those other iconic characters.
Yeah.
That we've seen. So, he did a great job bringing him to life as we were all along on the journey, right? And it was a great journey. It was fun, and he made it that way. And all the characters and all the acting was good. I don't know off the top of my head who played Alfred in the earlier seasons.
No,
he was just fantastic.
That was, yeah.
The Uhtred. I really, first of all, I would encourage anyone to watch the show, but the Uhtred Alfred dynamic is really good. Yeah. Really, really good. And on par with, I think, anything Game of Thrones ever did. And on par with anything Netflix ever did, in my view. Well, I say this as a Stranger Things fan. I love Stranger Things.
There you go. But that's what I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that dynamic that they invested so much time in the first couple of seasons between Alfred and Uhtred,
it paid off.
It laid the foundation for what we witnessed today.
It did, yeah.
Without that dynamic, none of this would make sense. Yeah. Why did he make that promise? Why did he do this? Why did he do that?
It intersected the stories.
Yes.
And because you kind of had Alfred's story.
Yeah.
And you kind of had Uhtred's story, and they were kind of running parallel. Uhtred had his motives, Alfred had his motives, and hey, enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing was going on there for a while. Eventually, I would not say that they grew to love each other, but there was mutual respect. And I think that respect carried over into what we saw today.
The purpose, the destiny.
Yes. Uhtred respected Alfred's vision. No question about it.
Destiny.
Destiny is all.
So, okay. Well, good. I think that's all I have. I'd love to spend time on the minutia and just really talk about, wow, that was so cool.
We'd have to get into spoilers.
But it would be spoiler, and that's just not happening. So, well, thanks for joining. Much appreciated.
Yeah, it was fun.
We're gonna have to pick some more things to watch and maybe do.
Fair enough. You have to catch up on Stranger Things.
Well, that may be an avenue. You gotta get on Vikings, dude.
I do.
You really gotta get on Vikings.
To find time to watch it.
Absolutely. So, okay. Anyways, guys, that's it. Let us know what you think, and God bless you. Remember, we're living in extreme days, so get Joshua 1:9 in your mind and in your heart. Remember, Jesus loves you. We'll talk to you later. Bye. That didn't work. You see how that?